You are now rocking with the best. This is the Hall About Sports podcast with your host, the one and only Meg Hall. If you don't know, now you know. Co host Kev is in the building, as the kids say. And of course, we had to get a living legend to come on the podcast. It is the one and only. Yeah, Mike, that's true. I know. And he's like, Who? Who are you talking about? It's you. It's Mr. Mike Patton of the Touring The AFC South podcast. He's also, as the kids say, in the building. Mike, what's going on? Welcome to episode 13.
Well, I know I was living, but I ain't know legend was supposed to be me.
See,
Okay, hey, how y'all
yeah.
doing?
Your
I was gonna
reputation
say,
precedes you, Mike.
it does. It does. If you don't know Mike Patton, please get your life together. Go follow him. Go find all his stuff. I didn't realize I was in the presence of a legend until about a month ago. Mike and I attended Black Sports Business Symposium together. I'm brand new. I'm just introducing myself, connecting with people, and we're walking, and everyone's like, "Oh, hey, Mike, what's up? What's going on, Mike? Hey." This was literally almost every other person that we were walking past. They were just coming up to either shake his hand, say hey. They knew him from, a back alley 6 years ago. Like, they knew who Mike Patton was. So at that moment, I was like, oh, clearly, I am underprepared for the moment. So this is a living legend in my eyes. I'm sorry, Mike. I know he's gonna get me after this podcast. He's gonna be like, really, Meg? Really? Of course. Got to give you your flowers. Also, on a serious note, though, Mike is one of my favorite people. Definitely been in a mentor capacity for me, so I had to get him on the podcast, and we got to chop it up. We're going to talk, AFC South, because this is what Mike does all day long, is talk AFC South. So why not throw him in the melee with us? But we're going to do rundown of shows. So it's going to start with under further review, and we'll talk about that, what that means. We're going to do the starting lineup. So how did Mike get his start? What in the world is the Touring The AFC South podcast? Is he a fan of other sports? Which I think you'll figure that out pretty quickly. We're going to do the state of the AFC South, because things are looking a little bit different now. We're also going to do the post-game presser, which is actually my favorite part of the podcast, where fans get to ask, I say fans, that's funny, guests get to ask us questions. I mean, Mike's probably a fan too, but guests get to ask Kevin and I questions that are, sports related or not. And it makes it, pretty fun. So, all right, let's start with upon further review. Put that on screen there. All right. So this is specifically dedicated to, hey, things that Kevin and I just find and we're like, you know what? I want to talk about that. So Kev, let's talk about this NBA draft lottery. Immediate thoughts and reactions. And I want to get Mike's thoughts and reactions as well.
Well, my immediate and first thought is just a congratulations to you, Meg, because I know that you are one of many that will be celebrating tonight, along with Greg Popovich, who I believe is right now restructuring his 5-year plan so it no longer includes retirement. I believe that the Spurs are now set for a good time. Now, the other big takeaway is, poor Detroit. You're right. Detroit Pistons fell out. They're all the way out of the top 4, and that one hurt. Again, I'm a Pacers fan, so they stayed exactly where they were supposed to, right at 7. No surprises here, but those 2 big shifts to me were my 2 big takeaways of, wow, poor Detroit. I went from all season thinking, wow, this Detroit team that's already so stacked with Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey as far as future talent, like, you're going to add Victor Wembanyama to that. Holy cow, look out. I was making the joke all year, 2026 Detroit Pistons versus Oklahoma City Thunder NBA Finals, because we forget the Thunder have Chet Holmgren just hanging out ready to fight for Rookie of the Year next year as well. So those were my 2 big takeaways, were just those, of course, the big drops. But, man, it's very exciting to at least know now where the pieces lie, because I think everyone's in agreement Victor's going number 1. I would not be one to sleep on Scoot Henderson, though, everyone. Scoot Henderson, I think, is going to have a big impact. But, it's very exciting. Now we can start playing the guessing game. I can start doing way too many mock drafts. Mike, I'm sure you know how that goes, man.
We were just talking about mock draft overload, and Kev's like, nope, more mock drafts. Give me all the mock drafts.
I had to but I paced myself during football season because, this is – basketball was my first love, so I knew I was going to be overloaded if I did too many NFL mocks.
Kev, more mock drafts.
You got every single mock draft. You got it all.
I'll do them all.
Wait for the moment and just be surprised with my bag of popcorn.
So, Mike, tell us what your thoughts were about the NBA lottery from your perspective.
Well, my team did not make it into this lottery, even though they had a pick, but it didn't happen because Orlando got that pick. So my team is probably the biggest loser of the NBA draft lottery. Other than that, definitely Ben Wallace looked like he was ready to throw somebody through a wall when that happened. And the Brandon Roy expression, just they go from extreme joy to extreme pain. Good gracious. I mean, I haven't felt that bad for him since his knee injuries. I felt bad for him. I was just like, I couldn't believe that the face just from complete joy to complete ugh. So yeah, it was those were a couple of the losers. I will say that Houston's going to be in a precarious spot at the 4 pick. That'll be interesting to see who they select, which honestly, I think I'll throw it out there. I think Scoot Henderson's going to fall to them.
That's a good point. We were doing a live stream during the draft lottery, and that was one of our first takeaways was, Scoot's really good, but based on how this played out, there aren't too many great fits for him in those first 3 picks. I like that, Mike. I think that's a very good possibility. He's going to fall to 4, and he's going to be good. I know that much.
He'll be Ime's main man. You know what I'm saying? Like Ahmad Rashad would say, Ahmad Rashad had 50,000 main men. He's going to be his main man.
Yes. Oh, man, that's a throwback. I love that.
Yes. Everybody was Ahmad Rashad's main man. I mean, heck, if I showed up on the set, he might, hey, that's my main man. For back in Nashville, my main man. He might say that to me. I tell him.
I love it. Oh my goodness. So I'm gonna give my thoughts really quickly. I want to try not to take up this entire podcast about how excited I was about the Spurs to get the number 1 pick. But let me say this. I let out probably the loudest yell of my life when that happened. I'm sure my neighbors are probably wondering like what's going on because that's how loud it was. Concerned my poor husband who was like, are you good? Like, are you all right? Just because like, okay, the Spurs have not had number 1 pick since 1997. So a lot of times I don't even hold my breath. I don't even waste my breath, really waste my time watching the NBA draft. Like, so I'm like, just tell us where we are and like, let us go on. But in my mind, for some, like I hadn't felt like this till today. For some reason, I was like, you know what if we get the number 1 pick? Like, we got a Frenchman coming, like he's, generational talent, that sort of thing. Like, it just felt like it might be a Spurs pick. For whatever reason, that was my gut today. But before now, I was like, oh, we have no chance. Like, it's just not happening. I'm like, we can't get that lucky. Like, it just, yeah. If you saw our season, then like, the Spurs desperately need some help. And that's no slight to our guys currently on the roster. But at 22 games, what do we go? 22-60? Like, yeah. It was a brutal season. And I'll say this. I went and saw the Spurs in the summer league last year and was inspired at least by, some of the young talent that we had, but I knew then it was going to be an uphill battle. So did I think it was going to be 20, just only 22 games? No, but said in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is a clean sweep, like kind of rebuild and we just need to be patient or whatever else. But now you kind of win the Wemby sweepstakes and here we are. So at this point, Pop's never going to retire, which is fine with me. Like, completely fine with me.
And me too.
Yeah, I'm good with it. Yeah, Pop's gonna be 157 years old, still on the sideline yelling, "Hey, get the ball inside to the big man! Do that! Oh. He's been doing something on the sideline with his nice little cane intact.
Is that that's what he's gonna sound like? Okay.
I don't know where that voice came from, but hey, it came out of somewhere. But he'll be 157 years old on the sideline.
I love it. All right, so I also want to talk about the hockey playoffs are going on right now, and this is a shout out to one of my other guys. So if you follow us on the Horseshoe Pride podcast, and about Chris Lewis, Chris has been giving me grief all day today about me tweeting out like, hey, I think I should say my allegiance to the Dallas Stars because, hey, I am from Texas, Texas roots. I grew up right outside of Dallas in a little city called Garland, Texas, if you know where that is. And so I've been watching the Stars, obviously, for a while, but I didn't really speak up about my hockey knowledge because it's very limited. I do know a little bit more about it because I played lacrosse and some of the positions are the same. So I can kind of follow the game a little bit, but I can't tell you like, this player's great, that player's great. I can't tell you I can't tell you any of that. But I was like, you know what? Like, I've been watching this amazing series between Dallas and Seattle. Like, this is phenomenal. I'm glad I like tuned in to watch the playoffs. Also been watching like, the Panthers do work. So I'm like, okay, this has been a really good like playoffs, hockey playoffs for someone who does not watch hockey. So I tweeted that out, and it was really cool. I really think he was just being a hater, Kev, honestly. But the stars like tweeted me back, and they were like, "Welcome to the party, Megan." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So that's been really cool. So I've been having, people tweet me all day saying, "Welcome, we appreciate you." Like everyone's cool except for Chris because he's a hater. And Chris is like, he's like, "Oh, this is disgusting. This is really disgusting. You just waited till they went to the Western Finals to be a fan." But the funny thing was, I'd watched other people tweet today that were like, "Oh yeah, you know what? I picked up Seattle as a team because, hey, I really liked them. They had a really great story or whatever else." He didn't say a word to them. And of course, he says to me in my mentions, he's like, "I'm just giving you grief, Meg." And I'm like, I see how it goes. Finally, I get excited, something that gets the people going. And it's your own people that just knock you down.
Hey, listen,
may I add something to that?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Chris is just mad that the Seattle didn't release the Kraken. That's why he's mad.
Mm-hmm. And Chris is a near and dear friend to me, but Chris went from a guy who was like, I don't really like basketball on Twitter, but then once the Miami Heat kept winning, he got on board. He got up to speed. He got his basketball knowledge up to par. So I'm just saying. I welcome him as part of the NBA brotherhood because we need all the great content creators we can get. So we want you here, Chris. So just stay a basketball guy. That's all I'm asking.
I can't really say much about him because in the Miami Heat because my favorite basketball player in the NBA plays for the Miami Heat. So
hey.
Are you a Jimmy Butler fan?
Yes, I am. Have been one since he's been in the league. So definitely a Jimmy Butler fan.
Okay, so that's probably a good segue. So let's talk about the starting lineup. So this is, how did you get your start? What in the world is your podcast? And then are you a fan of other sports? But I think I'm just going to flip it around. So clearly you're a fan of basketball. Let's start there. Since obviously you cover football. We'll get there in a second. But so you are a Jimmy Butler fan. And then I think you're also a Bulls fan. Did I hear that right? Like I heard that from around the way that you're a Bulls fan. So I need to know how this works.
Yes, I am a Bulls fan. I am a Jimmy Butler fan. Those two are definitely 100% accurate. I am a Bulls fan. I will say this. I did not come around when the Bulls won championships. I was actually a fan before they won championships, back when Brad Sellers was their number one pick. If that tells you how old I am or how long I've been around. So there you go. So you can't call me Johnny Come-Lately with that. But yeah, I've definitely been a Bulls fan for a long time, even through the Baby Bulls iteration, like twice an iteration of the Baby Bulls, not just once. And also, of course, Derrick Rose tearing up his knee, and the season after the championship where Mark Bryant was our starting center. Good gracious, we were awful. But I've been there through it all. Yes, I even had a Bulls actually starter warm-up set that I would wear during sometime at school, sometime too. Yes. So that's how much of a Bulls fan I've been my entire life.
In the trenches.
Thank you, WGN. That's how I became a Bulls
WGN.
fan.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Shout out to WGN. You
Wow.
can see that little Cubs thing right there. Yep.
That's how I became a Bulls and Cubs fan, is because of WGN.
Wow. I haven't heard that network name in a long time. Wow.
I still remember Harry Carey.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sounded like a drunk version of Macho Man Randy Savage up there.
No wonder why I liked it so much. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Can I hear that again? Because that was great.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I love a Macho Man impression. Yeah.
And you ought to see the guy that actually does one for the Titans every Sunday. He looks he looks like he looks like Macho Man Randy Savage, and he does one every Sunday during the games during the season. You got to see it. I'll have to send that one to you.
I do want to see that. Yep, yeah. That's a
Oh my
Titans
goodness.
fan I can be friends with, and I'm almost at capacity, but I'll make room.
So speaking of Titans, let's talk about your podcast. So I need to hear this story. What is Touring the AFC South? How did this come to be? Because fun fact, Mike is a 49ers fan. So yeah, I know, right, Kev? I know.
Right, I forgot about that. You told yeah.
Yeah, so I'm throwing all the haymakers today. So Mike's a 49ers fan, but which is actually really probably a good thing, honestly. So he can write objectively about the AFC South. And because he lives, am I okay to say where you live?
Yeah, that's okay. I'm looking around to see, but yes, okay. I was getting confirmation
because he lives around one of these teams. He's getting
no. I live in Nashville. That's fine. You can say I live in Nashville. That's fine.
So Mike lives in Nashville, but because he lives around one of these teams, he's getting firsthand perspective, right? Like he's getting this firsthand objective perspective. So how did this come to be? I need to hear the details. Give me all the tea, as the kids say.
Well, honestly, it came about because, I do watch the Titans and see the Titans all the time. I mean, I can't help it. I'm here. So I literally see them all the time, see them on the news all the time. So originally what I did, it was the app called the Haps app. It's not around anymore. But I would go on there and actually preview the Titans games, what they need to do to win games, what the other team need to do to beat them. I would do that for like 15, 20 minutes just on my own, straight 15 minutes, break down everything, stats, all those things. Did that before and after games. This was during during the pandemic, during the beginning of the pandemic. So that's when I actually, during the first pandemic season, that is when I actually started doing this. Now, after that, of course, the Haps app I wasn't happy with how it was showing on YouTube and things like that because it kept cutting off the first part of the show. I was like, what is going on here? So I looked for other ways, and then StreamYard came about, but that's a little bit later down the line. I kind of skipped ahead. But anyway, in the off season, once the first season was over, I was like, okay, am I going to have enough content to just talk about Titans the entire off season, or am I going to have to talk about? And I looked at it, I was like, okay, I see the Colts all the time when the Titans aren't playing. I see the Texans when the Titans aren't playing. I see the Jaguars when the Titans aren't playing. So they're going to show an AFC South team here somehow, some way. May as well go ahead and dive into those. And I looked at some of the contacts I had, and I was like, well, I can make this work. I can reach out to this person, this person, this person, this person. I was like, okay, cool. So let's make this work. So in May of 2021, which I'm coming upon 2 years now of doing Touring the AFC South. But in May of 2021, I started doing Touring the AFC South. I was doing it by myself at first, and then started getting guests, and then the guests have literally not stopped for almost 2 years now. So that's kind of how Touring the AFC South happened. I took the whole conference, put it in one place, and said, hey, nobody's covering this. Nobody's covering the AFC South. Why not allow me to be the official spokesman for the AFC South at this point and cover it all and give everybody the news in one place?
Okay. So I love that I've seen where it's very specialized on one team or things like that. So covering an entire conference makes it very interesting. I also know that because you cover an entire conference, you've had a number of guests on your podcast to talk about these 4 teams. Tell us about who have been some of your favorites that you had on thus far.
Let's see. Steve Weish definitely is one. Jim Trotter. I've had Jim Trotter on. Let's see. Who else have I had on? Gotta say Ben Troop. Former Titans tight end Ben Troop. Now that was a blast. His draft story is by far the best draft story I have ever heard. But yeah, I'll give you the scoop on it. Basically, Benjamin Watson and Ben Troop were both in the same draft. So you can kind of put 2 and 2 together potentially as to what happened. But I do have it out there. I'll either I'll send it to you, or we'll go from there. But yeah, definitely that was an interesting story. I've had Blaine Bishop on, who's a former Titans safety. Trying to think who else. I've had Jamel Hill. Now Jamel Hill, that was by far one of the best ones that I've had on, because that is the one person that I heard, Bomani Jones, Michael Smith, brother from another. I listen to those podcasts and watch those podcasts, and that's how I even grew in knowing what to do with podcasts is by watching and listening to those podcasts. That's how I got any of the ideas I had of things to do is because of those three podcasts mainly. So yeah, definitely to have Jamel Hill on my show and tell her and her to tell somebody ask her what she was drinking in her cup while she was on the show with me. And of course, she quoted Lil Wayne, "What is in my cup is in my cup." I was like, yes, yes, this is definitely a great show today. So, but yeah, definitely that was a lot of the memorable guests. But like I always like to say, every guest is a special guest on my show.
I love it. I love it. And I will also say this. I've heard a quote before that says, "If you've stolen from me, you've stolen twice." Um, I've heard that from someone that I used to work with, and I thought that was hilarious. But that person was basically saying like, "Hey, I take inspiration from other people, and I kind of put my own flair on it," which I think is really great because there's some really phenomenal talent in the industry who they're dropping knowledge all the time. So if you can take inspiration from them, put your own spin on it, definitely do it. I will say this, and then we'll get into the state of the AFC South because I think that's going to be the best part of this podcast. But if you have not seen Mike's podcast, this guy is a one man machine. I think Mike does podcasts probably. I'm probably undershining, but at least 3 to 4 nights a week, probably 5 at this point. Guest every single time. Like he's out here grinding, getting folks on. Probably the most like wow sort of factor you could have for a podcast. So again, go look at Tour the AFC South. It's going to be a shameless plug all podcast long. So for Mike's podcast, definitely got to give him his flowers because he's been doing his thing. All right, so Kev, we're going to talk about the state of the AFC South with Mike. So I'm going to put that up on the screen. There you go. State of the AFC South. All right. So I want to get this correctly because I sent this to Mike as part of the agenda, and I read this out loud. So it says with potentially 3 new quarterbacks, the AFC South looks different than years past. What does each quarterback need to succeed? What does each team need to do to win the division? And who is a team that is your sleeper pick to make a deep playoff run? So we're going to break it down. We're going to pick Mike's brain tonight to see what he thinks about this division that he covers. And let's start with, what does each quarterback need to succeed? And since we're Colts fan, I'm going to be a little bit of a homer here, and I'm going to say, let's go Colts first. Mike, from your perspective, what does Anthony Richardson need to do to succeed to be the franchise quarterback for the Colts?
Well, he needs a little bit of patience. That'll be the first thing. In terms of the actual coaching staff, while he's kind of going on this learning curve, and then also from the fans to understand that hey, he's going to have his bumps and bruises along the way. Secondly, I would say the running game. The running game is going to be very, very key. That starts with the offensive line, which the Colts have invested in, whether it be draft picks or bringing people back or shifting people around, whatever. They're investing in it. And that'll get Jonathan Taylor going, which will in turn make things easier for Anthony Richardson, which he can do the read option, he can do a bunch of different things, and he can bring a little bit of the element of what Jalen Hurts brought over with Anthony Richardson as well. So you have a little patience, running game, and then definitely call the game to his strengths while kind of masking his weaknesses. You do those things, he'll have a successful season and potentially do some pretty good things for the Colts this year.
I like it. Kev, what you got? What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, in order for Richardson to have some success with the Colts, we're going to need a healthy number 28 throughout the entire season this year, right? That's the number one thing. I think, it's few things often get called a young quarterback's best friend. And I think we need a combination of these 3 things, a good, healthy dose of the running game, improved offensive line play, and some better blocking out of our tight ends, but also to turn our tight end room into a viable option in the pass catching game, because we do have some talent on the outside with Pierce and Pittman, and we're all very excited about Josh Downs. But it's nice to have they call the tight ends that young quarterback safety blanket for a reason. I know some things can be cliche, but things become cliche for a reason. They get said often enough because they're true. So there's a good young tight end room here with the Colts that I think could take a step forward under this new coaching staff. So that is something I'd be looking at. We're going to see growing pains with Richardson, no matter what, even if everything I just said, if it's an A+ everywhere else, you're gonna have it. So I hope Colts fans understand. Maybe by the end of the season, we could all be in awe of what we're seeing, but especially early on, you just have to expect it to be rough at times. We're still talking about a quarterback who only played 13 games in college and who threw an uncatchable ball, 1 in every 4 passes. So he's got some things to learn, but we can, as a Colts team, they can make things a lot easier for him by being a dominant run attack. And then, Shane Steichen, I'm sure, is going to have some razzle dazzle in that playbook once we do. That's the thing. I start thinking about, almost like in Madden terms. And I think about, oh my goodness, I haven't seen the Colts run a read option. What is going on? I'm so excited about it. But I have to rein myself in and be realistic about the expectations. But someone said it in one of my comments once. Year 1, Colts fans are gonna be like, "Is this the guy?" And then by year 2, it'll be like, "Oh, this is the guy." Kind of maybe some people had the same vibe with Jalen Hurts. So anyway, I could talk about him all day, so I'll stop for a minute.
No,
Well,
I appreciate that. Go ahead, Mike.
I was gonna say, the 1 in 4 passes can be a little misleading though in terms of uncatchable passes because I watched a bit of those Florida tapes and you had a few guys that could have used a little stronger grip on the football. The ball hit them in their hands and they said, "Oh no, I don't want this." Basically, those kind of catches or no, those type of non-catches or missed passes, I would say. But like I've said previously. He's got to work on that touch in the short range because, if you can't throw 100 miles an hour with somebody 5 yards in front of you, because if you do, you're going to break their fingers, all of them. So,
A little bit.
Yeah.
So I will give my shortened version of what I think Anthony Richardson needs to do, and that's just trust himself. Honestly, the guy is incredibly talented. I think he's got to trust the staff around him too, that they are going to put, the tools in front of him to succeed. This is uncharted territory for Colts fans, right? We are now we have drafted a quarterback since our Andrew Luck days. We've got to get out of that. He's not Andrew Luck. He's not Peyton Manning. He's Anthony Richardson. And you got to adjust expectations accordingly for that. So I think that when we start there, you'll be fine. Again, you got to live with the bumps and the bruises, as Mike said. Let the kid roll. We'll see what happens there because he's going to go up against some other rookie quarterbacks as well in this division. So I want to transition and talk about some more. So we've got what is it? What's it? It's Bluegrass Bortles from the Titans. Mr. Emery Hunt calls him Bluegrass Bortles from the Titans. That is Will Levis. So Mike, I want to know from your lens, what does Will Levis have to do to succeed? Because is he even going to be the starting quarterback this season? That remains to be seen from my lens.
He's definitely not going to be the starting quarterback this year. The best thing for him is probably to sit and learn and to understand the offense. It's going to be interesting to me how they try to develop him like they try to develop Malik Willis. Because honestly, in my opinion, if I was the Titans, I think I would have developed Malik Willis another year as opposed to drafting another quarterback in another year again. Because now you have 2 young quarterbacks and, pretty much the microscope's going to be on you as to how you develop them. And if you fail in 2 straight years of developing a quarterback, then there's going to be a lot of questions around Mike Vrabel and then around the Tennessee Titans as an organization, because essentially, if you look at the Titans, what quarterback have they really developed outside of Steve McNair? None, basically. So there you go. So that'll be interesting to see. This offense though with Tim Kelly, it is more fast paced, more trying to get up to the line of scrimmage, make some things happen. So it'll be interesting to see how Will Levis adapts to that. But it's going to be Ryan Tannehill's show until injured or the Titans decide something else is going to happen. So you may as well say he's going to be on the shelf for this year and he's going to be in that playbook.
Okay. So I want to keep going. Kev, I want to get your thoughts on CJ Stroud from the Texans. So Obviously, this was a dream scenario for the Texans, right? No one could really get a read on them about whether or not they were going to take Stroud. Not only do they take Stroud, but they also take Will Anderson as well. So now you've got two basically centerpieces for your new look Texans with CJ Stroud leading the helm. Like, what do you think he needs to do to succeed? Are you bought in on his leadership abilities for the Texans?
Well, I'll answer the second question first because I am bought in. The longtime listeners to our Colts program, Meg, the Horseshoe Pride that was once upon a time Indy Intercept. I believe
Yeah.
in my very first appearance on that program, I was at the time wishing upon a shooting star that the Colts might have a chance at a CJ Stroud. And at that time, I think the Colts were maybe 3-4, maybe it was week 8, 3-4-1. And at the
Oh,
time, it still seemed a little unrealistic that the Colts might be in that position. So, and we'll acknowledge the bias. You can probably guess by one of those flags hanging on my wall that I am a Columbus local. So I have had my fair share of CJ Stroud exposure. So I've seen the good, I've seen the bad, I've seen and heard every possible overreaction that fan base could come up with on both sides of that when it comes to CJ Stroud. And I do think that playing at programs like Ohio State, like Alabama, does give you a good taste at quarterback for what it's like to be under a national spotlight. I'm not saying it compares 1-to-1 to the NFL, but it's different than going to a smaller school and maybe not having to deal with that. At Ohio State, before the Bengals became something, that basically was the pro football team in Ohio for several years. That was the one thing that you knew everybody who had their eyes on. So I am bought in with CJ Stroud. I think it could be a tough year for the Texans, although I may like them more than most. I like what they've done in the offseason. I think they've added a lot of complementary pieces. I'm worried about their wide receiver room this year for CJ Stroud. I think that's my big concern. I think they'll have some decent play out of the backfield, but yeah, for him, I think this first year is going to just be kind of staying alive and taking his lumps because I don't know if they have the talent on the outside to really do serious damage with him.
yeah, I'd be curious to see what they get out of Tank Dell. One, they've got I think what's the other guy? Xavier Hutchinson, I think, is the other guy that they drafted. So they did put
Yep.
some pieces there, but to that point, like one of the main sticking issues they had in their office is that they didn't have enough production coming out of really anybody, other than Damian Pierce, from that sort of standpoint. And I think that you gotta look at the Texans for what they are. Like on paper, they look great, right? Like they really have improved, I think, from the offseason to the offseason. But is that going to translate to the field? We don't know that yet, especially with the rookie quarterback at the helm. Mike, you look like you had some thoughts too as well about CJ Stroud.
We forgot two people that actually on that offense that are going to be there too. Was mentioned, John Mechie the third. He's coming back
Oh,
from
he is coming back.
cancer.
Yes.
He'll be out
Yes.
there. Also, they picked up Dallas Schultz from the Dallas Cowboys at tight end, which he's going to have people to throw the football to. So that's not worrying me at all.
Okay.
The thing I'm wondering is the offensive line going to be better? And defensively, I mean, are they going to be able to pressure the quarterback? Because Jerry Hughes was 185 years old leading them in sacks, and that cannot happen again, ever.
Well, I did hear them say that they are changing Will Anderson's position, right? They're going to make him a D end now. He's coming from being a linebacker, to now D end, which D'Amico
Well,
Ryans talked about that it would not be that big of a difference for him or whatever else. But I'd be curious to see what his production looks like, now coming off the edge there. I think for the Texans, like I'll be real honest with you, I went to the Texans Titans game last year,
mm-hmm.
and it was probably one of the most brutal displays of football that I've ever seen. And that's really rich coming from a Colts fan that watched the Broncos play in primetime. But my point being is that like you could see it on their fans' faces. They were just like, I mean, they were done watching whatever this product was on the field. So I think fans are really excited to see that. Like Nick Caserio and their owner Cal has, really truly kind of flipped this team on its head, put some really nice pieces there for them to go and make some noise in in the AFC South. And this is hey, non-biased lens here. I think the Texans are probably sitting at probably 6 to 8 wins. I think that's really doable for them to put on the docket there. Anything past that is house money, but I think it all depends on what you get out of CJ Stroud.
I've got something more for you there, actually.
Yeah.
I'll say this. he's very lucky, Nick Caserio, that he's getting to pick a third head coach and he's getting to draft again, because most general managers that have fired two coaches or let go of two coaches, especially in the fashion they have, don't survive. So this is it for him, pretty much. And then honestly, I would say this, and I said it on Brother from Another. I would not be surprised if the Houston Texans compete for the AFC South Division crown this year.
Ooh, spicy. Okay, so that leads right into my other part of this question is, all right, what does each team need to do to win a division? So you said, hey, Texans might be a sleeper to win a division. What do they need to do to get there?
Well, they need to create more pressure, which Will Anderson is what the doctor ordered there. And I don't think it's that big a stretch for him to move from linebacker to defensive end, because he pretty much was doing the same things at Alabama and moving all around everywhere. So not that big of a stretch for him, to be honest. And, defensively, I think they got better in the secondary, adding Jimmy Ward from the 49ers to kind of the veteran to go along with what they have. So I think they'll be better defensively just because D'Amico Ryans is there and because of the pieces they added. Then, offensively, I think they run the football well, and Stroud is definitely better than Davis Mills on his best day. So, I definitely think they don't turn the football over, run the football, ask Stroud to put Stroud in positions to succeed, get pressure on the quarterback. The Texans will be there. And then plus you got to also think the AFC South isn't running away from them, to be honest. I mean, it isn't like Indianapolis is greatly worldly better. It isn't like the Titans are greatly worldly better. And the Jaguars, for as great as they were last year, they're still Jacksonville. So, you got to remember those things.
Sorry, Jags fans. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. All right. So that leads me to wonder, and Kev, I promise at some point I'll stop talking so you can also talk about this as well. But that leads me to wonder, like, all right, so let's say that, the Texans and the Jags are competing for the AFC South, because this is my hot take. I think the Titans are going to take a couple of years off from these back-to-backs they tried to win. But let's say that the division comes down to the Texans and the Jags. Kev, if that's the scenario, who do you have in that? Let's say it's a similar scenario to how it came down. For all the marbles, it's week 18. It's down to, who's going to win the division. What do you put your money on?
Right now, I put my money on the Jags in that situation. And some of it has to do with the fact that that's exactly how they got to the playoffs last year. Like, I think that counts for something to have. Now, there was a little bit of luck involved. I'm mainly speaking on that Dallas Cowboys game, right? Like that pick six, the way they won that game, like that's the definition of a gift. So, right, like I want to acknowledge things like that. However, they did have some clutch performances, right? Even in that Tennessee game, again, they caught a break. They're going up against Josh Dobbs in that game. Absolutely that plays out to their favor. But that being said, there's something about the confidence that is behind you once you've been there and you've done that. And then also I see it's mentioned in the comments here with Ridley coming back. I think the Jaguars are going to get better offensively for a lot of reasons. Ridley being one, more experience with Trevor Lawrence being another. And I do believe that they have the right guy in at coach. So right now, I would give the edge to the Jaguars.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I think this becomes very interesting, because I think one of the things we talked about, and if you watch the last episode, we had RJ on from Titans Coliseum podcast. First of all, very confident Titans fan, let me say that. But I think that the Titans are confident that, hey, they can get back to so to speak the upper echelon of the division now, because they were badly beat up. They just didn't look great. But the thing that I've always said is that you got to watch out for a team like the Texans, because even though that their roster wasn't great last season, there were several games that they were in very late. They took the Chiefs down to the wire. And I think people forget about that like this Texans team's got a little bit of a fight in it. And I think that they're feeling very confident from having D'Amico Ryans at the helms now. And I think that, again, with all these offseason pieces and things like that, like they could make some noise. I do not have them winning the division, though. I don't have that. but I do think that they can make some noise and that they might make the Jags sweat a little bit. This is Colts fans. I'm sorry, you're probably going to be upset with me if this was your dream. Close your ears, as Kev is doing. But I do not have the Colts winning the division. I've got the Jags winning the division because I think that they have been silently building for several seasons now. Their owner has been giving, essentially this front office leadership the pass to say, hey, go out and get the folks that we need to. They've not afraid to spend money. They've been not afraid to draft the guys that they need to. And then they finally did the smart thing and got rid of Urban Meyer. Doug Peterson comes on board, and all of a sudden, week 9, and Trevor Lawrence is playing lights out after only 9 games in this new regime, which tells me that the Jags are coming. And as the Jags have said, it was always the Jags. Yeah, maybe they believed it was always the Jags, but I don't even think that they knew what they were going to get out of Trevor Lawrence. Like that sort of play. I think, Kev, you and I, we wrote articles about that, about the Jags offense finally arriving because the sky was falling in Jacksonville, and all of a sudden, like some light bulb went off, and Trevor Lawrence is playing outside of his mind. And that Cowboys game, Mike, was the wildest game I think I have seen in recent memory. I remember watching that game and I was like, there's no way they're going to win this game. Like Cowboys got it in the bag. And I probably should have just stopped talking because once I saw a football bounce off a helmet and go the other way, I was like, what sorcery is this? Who have the Jags paid for this to happen? Side note, shout out to their social media team because they did the schedule reveal a couple days ago, and they said, hey, this was in the script. And yeah, man, what a wild script to have. To not only have that, and then you come back and beat the Chargers when literally it's probably the worst playoff game I've seen in so long. And the Jags just walked away like, yeah, that's what we do. So I think the Jags have something to prove here. I think that they're like, hey, we're getting here. We're coming. Watch out for us. I do think they win the division this year.
Well, I definitely think they have the best shot to win the division. However, I do remember you distinctly saying that I think the Titans' run is over. I don't know if I'd necessarily say that per se. I will say that, of course, they're kind of, devoid of a lot of top tier talent at wide receiver. However, I do think Treylon Burks takes a step forward to be that guy at wide receiver this year. He's definitely in better shape than he was last year. He's actually been up here training and doing different things. He actually spoke to the media recently and said he actually has started changing his diet during the season last year to kind of get better and kind of get more acclimated to the weather. And he has asthma, so he had to get acclimated to the weather. He's been doing all his training here to get acclimated to the weather, the outside, all those different things. So that way he doesn't get tired out there, tired in terms of an asthma sense. So I think he's actually coming in this year better than he was last year. And I definitely think that Kyle Phillips will be better if he can stay healthy. And, another guy to think about is Racey McMath, too. He actually was going to be a guy that was a breakout guy for them. Then he got injured in training camp, and he was out for the majority of the season. That doesn't happen. That's your deep threat right there. A big 6'2" guy that can run like a deer. From LSU, by the way. So I think the Titans, will actually be better than what most people think they will be this year. I think last year was an aberration of what they are.
Ooh, an aberration is a real good word because that was a nightmare scenario for them. And I'll say this: my concern about the Titans is if Treylon Burks doesn't stay healthy. Where's your offense coming from? Because we know it, Derrick Henry. We know that. You cannot depend on Chig Okonkwo to be the guy for your the rest of your receiving.
I don't know. I think with the new tight end you got bringing in, you can kind of mix a few things up because now you actually have another guy, a 6'7" guy they brought in, a tight end that actually is pretty solid as well, Wiley. So I think. Maybe, just maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
You might just get a little bit more out of Chig if you give him more touches. Because that's the thing I thought was bad last year is he knew he was the playmaker. You knew him and Burks were playmakers, but they didn't give him enough touches to be like, okay, cool, he's the guy. And then one game he did, he had a couple touchdowns. I was like, okay, here we go. And now if they could feed him like that and feed him in the aspect of a Jonnu Smith, I think then you've got something going.
So this is a fun comment. So this came from Parrish, and he says, unfortunately, Tannehill gives the Titans a chance at winning the division. As a fan, I don't want that because I know the result is with him in the playoffs. Jeez. Yeah, I think for the Titans, they have a very wild situation on their hands, whether or not they win the division. At this point, I think Mike kind of answered my last question, which was, which team do you think could make a deep playoff run? Look out for the Texans. Maybe if they win. I mean, let me say this: there's a lot of hype from Texans fans right now about their team, and rightfully so. Like, they have been through it. I do think that like this division could be won with 8 or 9 games. That's how terrible the division has been. So again, at this point, it's only like get in the playoffs. Nothing. Your record doesn't even records be darned at that point. Get in the playoffs and go. I would be curious to see what the Texans do if they were to get into the playoffs. Do I think they could win a playoff game? Potentially, maybe one. I don't know about 2 or 3. Very young team. But
I'd be asking a lot.
Yeah, but someone like the Jags, who has come back, they had their playoff game. I think they want more back on their plate, or they want more chances here to prove that they are. And as they say, it was always the Jags. So I think for them, and hey, the Colts will just be at home chilling. I hate to say it like that because I feel like we watched, Kev. I know you feel me here when I say this. We watched something magical happen with Andrew Luck his first season and getting into the playoffs, that I think that fans have this like a warped sort of perception of like what is possible with a rookie quarterback. And I'm like, no. He was definitely the exception to the rule.
Yes, and it should be noted, I think sometimes when we look back through those rose-colored glasses, we don't often look at the landscape of the AFC South the year that Andrew Luck won the division as a rookie, right? Like, that's not Anthony Richardson's situation. There's not much that you can compare these two and say, oh, look at these parallels, right? At least not in my opinion. I think we should, as Colts fans, have very reasonable expectations for this and, be one of those. It was like MJ said in one of the Spider-Mans, No Way Home, Homecoming, whatever. I expect disappointment, and then I'm never disappointed. So as a Colts fans, if you're going to be surprised next year, let it be pleasantly. That's all I'm saying. Don't get your hopes up in some unrealistic, we're going to win 11 games with a rookie quarterback. Absolutely not. I'm sorry. We'd love 8 though. Wouldn't we just be excited for 8?
Listen, if we win 8
one place
games,
it happens.
If we win 8 games,
That's
I'm
true.
going running like in my neighborhood, screaming at the top of my lungs, like, that sort of like, you just won the Publishers Clearinghouse, like big check. Like, yeah, I'm having that kind of run through my neighborhood if we win 8 games.
See, give me the Indiana Pacers series, but in Colts form. Give me 3 hard-fought quarters every single week where we just barely lose and then get a top 10 draft pick. And then I'm like, oh, look at this team. They're so young. Just a few possessions away each week, and then give us Marvin Jr. and then I'll be happy.
I was about to say, where are you going with this?
Don't you,
I feel like I would be disappointed with this sort of thing.
Hey, I'm gonna give you a tip, Kev. Just call him Junior, man. Don't mention that name.
Okay,
don't do that on these internet streets. I'm just trying to help you, man.
Fair enough.
Help you.
Okay, heard. Okay.
I mean, yeah, Colts fans definitely think that we have a shot at getting the junior. And I think that would be, that would be a really nice piece. But again, that would mean that you are terrible again. That would mean that you've had a horrific season. And I'm not quite sure that, that Colts fans can stand that. Again, reasonable Colts fans here, we know. But if you've been out in these Colts streets and you know that everyone thinks we're winning like 11 games, we're going to run the division back, JT's going to be MVP, like, It is the dream scenario
Yeah,
for those
Richardson
fans.
is like Cam Newton plus Steve McNair with a little bit of Dante Culpepper mixed in, and yeah, he's just
Easily.
gonna,
Easily.
yeah, he's just gonna start week 1, and we're gonna
Listen, week 1,
win 11 games.
450 yards, 3 touchdowns, rushing for another touchdown, like boom, right there.
20 rushing
Clap it
touchdowns.
up.
Rookie
There's
year.
one
There we
place.
go.
There's one place they get 11 wins this year. There's one place alone where the Colts get 11 wins. You want to know where that is?
When pigs fly? Yeah, I got you.
No, that is fantasy land. That is where they get 11 wins.
Madden 23 or what?
I mean, hey,
There you go.
hey, we
There you
just
go.
try to be realistic around here. I know I'm probably gonna hurt some poor Colts fans like feelings when I say this, but please do not put that kind of pressure on this man. He is just about to turn 21 years old. Like he haven't even had his first drink yet. Like, and now you're trying to put an AFC South title on his plate. Please let this man breathe. Let the man breathe. Listen,
let him drink his Kool-Aid in peace.
Exactly. All he's trying to do is wear his Crocs in peace. Like, let this man breathe. Honestly. All right. So we've come to the part of the podcast where now you get to ask us questions. I feel like I want to do like a nice little, there we go, nice little side by side. So this is called the post-game presser. So Mike, you get to ask us questions, and I know they're going to be good because that's just how Mike rolls. And they're probably going to be questions where we're going to be stumped or think, or I don't know what chaos awaits for us, but I'm going to let you go, Mike. What you got for us?
Oh, Kev, I got one really good for you.
Ooh.
3 shooters: Steph Curry, Ray Allen, Reggie Miller. Who wins the 3-point contest between them and why?
Who wins the contest, huh?
Who wins the 3-point contest between them and why?
Oh my! If it's the 3-point contest, I think I'm gonna go Ray Allen, but I don't know. I want to go. My instinct is to say Steph. As much as I love Reggie, it's not Reggie. In this case, I think I'm gonna say Ray Allen because of his lightning fast release. He's gonna have a little bit more time to take his time on that final rack. But it's that I would love to. I'd pay so much money to watch that. The 3 of those guys go at it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Meg, who is your favorite Colts player and why? No. There's a caveat to this. It can't be Peyton Manning. It can't be Andrew Luck. It can't be Reggie Wayne. Nor can it be that other guy that his son is playing for Ohio State.
We talking all time or like currently?
Currently, all time, however you want to slice it.
All right, so I'm going to give this guy his flowers because I absolutely love him. It's Grover Stewart. It's number 90. I love me some big Grover Stewart. Not only complete game wrecker, but the guy is just got the Southern hospitality and spirit. If you didn't see the Colts like schedule release or whatever, it's him and Buck at a table eating their way through the schedule. And it is the most wholesome thing you will ever see. Grover just loves to have fun. Real big guy. Real big fun guy, and I think his teammates love him for it. But again, highly underrated. Should have been a Pro Bowler last year. Even Quentin Nelson said that. I love me some Grover Stewart currently. If we got to go all time and not those folks that you named, can I have 2? Does that work?
It's your show. We're going to let it slide.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
Cool. I would go Robert Mathis, and I'm going to also go Bob Sanders. Bob Sanders, if he'd only stayed healthy, Jesus.
Shout out to Gary Brackett, the unsung hero.
I'm sorry, Gary Brackett. I'm really sorry to you. So, he did cross my mind. He crossed my mind. But yeah, I would have to go with them as like all-time guys. It's really hard because I can't say Peyton Manning. He's the whole reason why I became a Colts fan. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I know what I was doing with these questions.
The pain.
All right, let's see. Kev, I got another one for you.
All right.
What is the biggest life lesson that you have ever learned from sports?
Ooh, from sports?
Yes.
It's going to be it's going to be a bit cliche, I think, but I've learned the most just from from losses and redemption, from coming back from things. I would say probably the biggest thing, like coming back from injury, probably the biggest thing that sports has been able to teach me. Right, you break your wrist as a wide receiver. And then, so my senior night, I'm literally playing with a cast, the last night I'll ever play football because I'm not good enough to go beyond high school. And so, you learn things about, toughness, priorities, what's important to you, how to make balance in your life. But then for me, the most important thing was that, failure wasn't final, that it didn't have like what happened today wasn't the end of it. And that there was always going to be a chance maybe to come back and redeem myself, so to speak. So yeah, sports, I don't know, I use sports as a crutch, man. A lot of my little life advice things or little one liners that coach gave me or something like that. So I could probably give you 50 answers, but I'd say that's off the cuff, that's probably my best lesson I think I've learned.
Okay, all right. Now I got something for you that actually, I played my last game of my senior year of high school with a broken hand. Actually, I broke my left hand, a rotary dislocation in my ring finger, and a broken bone. So I went and had basically the surgery during the week. They put a cast on. I had to talk my way into getting on the field. And they had to like wrap it up. They had to wrap up my hand, like the little club you have. Yeah,
Yep,
I was playing with the club out there. Yeah. So I did that my senior year. I actually ended up breaking the same hand my sophomore year of college. Had a diagonal fracture of the same bone in my hand. So yeah, I've done that twice and been on the field playing with a club on my hand twice. Yes.
Ouch.
Let's see. What have I got for you? I'm gonna give this one to both of you. Game 7 of the NBA Finals or a Colts playoff game. I mean, a big time playoff game that you're in attendance for. I mean, you're right there, either near the field or you're in the booth covering the game. What is the choice you're making?
I mean,
that's awful for me.
I was
I'll let Meg go first because I think hers is easy.
I thought about you in mind with that one, Kev.
Kev is probably in shambles. He's like, "You're gonna make me choose between basketball or football? What?"
Yeah.
For me, it's definitely gonna be football first. Football is my first love. And when it comes to sports, like I'm from Texas. You practically grow up with it in your blood. It's the first sport that I ever watched. Definitely give me the Colts playoff game. If I'm covering this game, like, hey, this is what I'm doing professionally. Yeah, then this is going to be goosebumps to be like, yeah, covering a Colts playoff game. As a fan, I'm probably hungry. I'm probably tired. I'm uncomfortable, but I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. I've probably lost my voice by the end of the game because it's my Colts. So yeah, give me the Colts playoff game.
Kev, I think we've given you enough time to think on this one.
Yep. Much time as I'm going to get. Oh, this one's very tough for me because much like Meg just stated, football was her first love. Basketball, absolutely, literally my first love. I am one of those Indiana kids who grew up with a hoop in his backyard. There was no pavement. There was just a patch of dirt that I dribbled into place. So as soon as I could hoist that bad boy up 10 feet in the air, I was playing basketball until I couldn't anymore. So there is nothing really, very few things in this world that I have a passion for like I do with basketball. It's my happy place. It's my escape. When I need 30 minutes to go clear my head, I find a hoop and I shoot jumpers listening to some music, and I work things out that way. So for me to have a chance to be at the highest point of the sport that I love the most, I think I couldn't pass that up. Right. I've played, I've officiated, I've coached, I've been a student manager. I mean, I just, if there's a way to be involved with this sport, I've thrown myself at it and tried to do it. So as much as I love the Colts, and that would be very awesome to have a rooting interest, I think if I only get one shot, I would go to Game 7 and be a part of that and take that all in. So a very tough choice. So great questions here, Mike. I appreciate that. Although I hate having to answer them.
Well, I do have one more for you, Meg, since I did give 2 questions. Did I give you 2? Did I give both of you 2 questions, or did both of you 1 question?
I think we got the second one was both of us, but yeah, I think Kev might have gotten 2 questions, maybe. Maybe.
Okay, well, I do have another question for you. Let's see.
All right.
What made you fall in love with sports, man? What's the one singular moment you can point at and like, okay, this is why I love sports.
Oh, oh, that's a good one. Are you talking about watching or playing sports?
Just love it in general. Like,
General.
be watching, playing, whatever. Just how you fell in love with sports. That one moment.
Oh my gosh. Um,
I'm taking
as
her back to childhood here, Kev.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I would say this: as much sports as I watched, nothing was better than playing it. And I remember when I started playing lacrosse in high school, it was kind of a happenstance. I remember, going to my parents, "Hey, lacrosse is coming to high school. This is what I think I want to do this." Parents have no idea what lacrosse is. I barely even know what lacrosse is, but I remember my first game. We're in the cold. It's probably easily 34, 35 degrees outside. And I took a charge and I mean straight to the chest. Boom. Fell back. Girl who hit me is probably twice my size because I'm, a buck 10 soaking wet. And I remember being like, I'm good. I'm good. Put me back in. Like, I'm good. I'm ready to go. And my coach was like, absolutely not. Like, we got to call it. Like, I can hardly breathe. I can hardly talk at this point. Like, I mean, gasping, trying to get air through. And my coach was like, "No, you're coming out." And I'm like, "I'm good, coach. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. I'm good." But it was like that adrenaline like pumping through your veins. And I took that with me, and I kept that through my senior season when I was playing. And also probably going to date myself here, but this is when Jim Jones had a song called "Ballin" that came out 2007. And of
Yes.
course, hey, we're lacrosse players. We're gonna find some sort of all the puns, and hey, I love a good pun. But I remember being out on the field with my ladies a couple games later, and we're getting each other hyped up, and everyone's like, no lie, we can do this, and everyone's like ballin' at the top of their lungs, and it's all these girls, screaming this Jim Jones song. And it just made me think back, like, okay, I got up from that moment where I got hit in the chest and couldn't breathe for moments like this, for me to feel like this adrenaline rush through my veins, for me to feel this camaraderie, for me to feel a part of this team. And so, yeah, I was hooked since then. And really, the crazy thing about that is I had never played sports before lacrosse, ever. Picked it up just like that and was pretty good at it too. Smallest little thing on the field, 5'2", 110 pounds. Most of these girls are, easily 5'8", 5'9" height that I don't have. And they're easily 160, 170 pounds, bigger than me, but you couldn't tell me anything. You couldn't tell me anything at all at that moment because I believed in myself. I believed in those ladies who I was playing with. And that moment alone was like, okay, this is what sports is all about. And now I get to write about that sort of same feeling that these players are experiencing. Like, you can't beat that. Can't beat that at all.
All right, that's all I got. I'm all out of questions.
That was good questions.
Yeah.
Really good questions. I love it. I love it. All right, Mike. So thank you for coming on. You've graced us with your presence, which we so appreciate. Tell the kids where they can find you on the internets.
Well, you can find me on these rough internet streets. Of course, first place Twitter. You can find me there at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82. On Instagram, you can find me at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. And of course, you can find Touring the AFC South on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, you name it, we are there, and we're on YouTube too. So hey, check out Touring the AFC South. Go ahead, like, subscribe, share, and go ahead and get into it. AFC South, it's here.
I love it. Love it. Go for it, Kat. Where can they find you?
All right. Well, you can find me most nights on the Bite Size Sports Podcast Network. That is on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you find your podcast. But we also run 4 live shows a week on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. So be sure to subscribe with the notification bell turned on. I'm also here, by the way, every Tuesday at 9. And on the weekends now, I do this little thing where Carnage TV has given me the opportunity to do play-by-play for their many combat sport pay-per-views. So you can see when the next one will be on Twitter at the Carnage TV. Very much looking forward to that. I don't have a day off between now and July, I don't think. So you'll be I'll be learning a lot more about the many disciplines, the beautiful art or whatever they call it. But I'm very excited. So always. Oh, and on Twitter at @KevNevick_, if I didn't say it.
Yeah, Kev does all the things, just like Mike does all the things. So, I'm just trying to keep up. But you can find me on Twitter. It is at the Megan Hall. Same thing on Instagram. Find me on the Tick of the Talk. It is Hall About Sports Pod. That's POD. You can also find us, of course, on YouTube. It's Hall About Sports podcast. Podcast is also on wherever you get your podcast, whether that's Apple, Spotify, as Mike said, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, you name it. We're probably there as well. And of course, for all of your current content, go to allaboutsports.com. I also write for Coltswire. So if you're a big Colts fan, go over to coltswire.usatoday.com. Find all your good, lovely Colts content from me and the wonderful staff at Coltswire. All right. So as you know, the sports are real. The sounds of the game are real. And yes, the stories are real too. You've been listening to the Hall About Sports podcast. We'll catch you next episode.